Guys, how's it going? Happy Sunday to everybody. We are going to be doing a live with Sneaker Legal. Super excited. Talking about Kanye West and Adidas fallout. What's going on? Yep. Excellent. Super looking forward to this. What's going on, guys? What's going on? Let's pin the topic real quick. Lots of interesting stuff going on in Kanye's world. Can't wait to flush this out with Sneaker Legal. Thanks for joining, guys. Let's pin this. Pin. There we go. Kanye. Never a dull moment here. If you're just joining us, we're going to go live in just a few minutes with Sneaker Legal. My friend on the East Coast who does IP law, Zach. And for those of you who follow him, he loves to cover stuff on shoes, fashion, entertainment. And so we figured we'd have a frank conversation about where Kanye's at with Adidas and what the fallout looks like, what his legal rights are, what the implications are, what could happen in the future. We've already seen Adidas's public announcements of distancing themselves from Kanye, and certainly that's going to have a huge impact on their profitability. I think Forbes has reported that this is going to cost Adidas probably $250 million, and that's not a small chunk of change. That's just this year. And so Kanye probably, 5 to 8% of the sales he was getting as a royalty. So it's a significant loss for him. And I don't know, I think dealing with e-commerce entrepreneurs, internet defamation, online content creators, I think the biggest lesson to learn for people here, at least from the way I see it, is, you have to really just own what you say online. Own it, meaning you have to have accountability. You have to be ready for the fallout, and you just have to be prepared for when the big brands that you do deals with have issues with what you have to say. So looking for Kurt to join. Here we go. See if I can do this. Invite. There we go. Zach.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, man? It's been a long time.
I know, right? Not too long. Almost a little less than a year ago, man. It's great to finally connect, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I see you're doing amazing things content-wise, which is always great. You've always got some great content, and I've seen you grow your account, man, from the early days. So it's awesome. I'm proud of you for what you've done.
Right? Thank you. Trying to follow in your footsteps and everyone else. Just trying to keep it creative. So I appreciate it.
Love it. Is that your shoe closet behind you?
Yeah. That's the one, the main office one. It's growing, as you can imagine.
That's impressive, man. That's impressive. What's the most valuable? Before we get started talking about Yee and Adidas, what's like the most impressive pair of shoes that you have? Like either most rare or most valuable?
That's a good question. See, to me, I don't go by the StockX value or the eBay value and such like that. I usually just go by what it means to me. So I have a lot of pairs that are like personal to me, that are either custom made for me, or otherwise I would just go with probably the 85 Jordan. I recently got a pair of the original 85, and I love that silhouette. So that's like my grail.
How did you find that? Did you find it online?
I did. I've literally been searching for 2 years now, and I finally found a good price on eBay. So
wow,
eBay right there.
And you found it. You found it here in the States, or did you have to go overseas to find it?
Yeah, so there's a couple good places that I use that are, like you said, overseas, Curated Vans, and a whole bunch of other Foxtrot that I look at usually. But I think this purchase was straight off of eBay from someone in America, so I got lucky.
You're a lucky man. Wear those proud.
Right? Thank you. It's so tough to find. So it literally was a 2 to 3 year search that I was like finally going to put some money in and do something. So it was great. I think that's probably my favorite one now.
Beautiful. Love it. Well, let's jump right in, man. I mean, look, it has been an interesting time in the shoe world and with Kanye and Adidas. Anybody who's a shoe buff, fashion buff, or even if you just watch celebrity news, you have to be under a rock. People would have to be under a rock to not hear about what's going on, right? I am, this is like your domain of expertise in terms of, you know, working with brands and specifically sneakers. Obviously, you know, I bring the e-commerce and the online free speech and all that. But I'm super curious to hear your thoughts, right? And if you're just joining the live, we're going to talk about Kanye West and specifically the Adidas fallout, how it's impacted Kanye's brand, the Adidas brand, as a result of his anti-Semitic rants and just acting nuts, I would say, right? What's your take on this, man? I mean, first of all, let's set the stage. What's happened, right? We know that Adidas has basically backed away from Kanye in the last week, at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. I guess taking a step back, it all started literally, it's almost like a 10-year partnership by now. But it really is about a 9 to 10-year contract that Adidas had with Kanye West to, you know, get the shoe that everyone's loved for so long, the Yeezy 350. Then they had, you know, all the iterations of that, the V1, V2, and all those ones, which are important here because of what the IP aspect, as you know. But yeah, it's just a really long relationship that sort of dwindled down over the past 2 years. And it stems with Adidas, but it's, you know, every other brand that Kanye is associated with.
And you mentioned that it's been dwindling down, and that's interesting because many people kind of just tend to look at this in isolation, like he said one thing or a few tweets and, oh my God, is this that big of a deal? But the reality is, we all know that Kanye is, or Ye as he's legally known, right? He's a controversial dude. Like, he loves saying things that, you know, it's sound bites, make headlines. He's going to speak his mind. He's going to say whatever he wants with little care for the consequences, right? And so this has been a trajectory, I feel like, that's been going on for a few years now. This is not somebody just woke up and said, we're not doing business with Ye, right? It's been several years in the making. And I think, I mean, just going back to how he conducts himself at award ceremonies, not just what he says on Twitter, but he can be obnoxious, right? And I don't think brands like that. And if you're a big brand, if you're Adidas, Balenciaga's backed away from working with Ye, Gap, right? CCA has now pulled back away from Kanye. So it's like, on one hand, he's got this creative genius, creative marvel, and we can all recognize that, right? But that's not the end all, be all in business. Your reputation, who you associate with in business is everything. And that's the whole reason why these deals are worth something to begin with, right? Is, you know, his reputation, who he is, his persona. Adidas is willing to put their brand behind it and back it, which is, from a sales standpoint, a lot of people don't know this. At least Forbes reported that the losses being reported by Adidas estimated for this year alone, which is really just a few months left, it's going to be like $250 million. Did you hear that too?
Yeah, I think you're right. Just in this Q4, and then even just the trickle down effect. As soon as all this went down, Kanye went from a billionaire as like a 1.5 billion to 400 million. So he instantly went off the billionaire status, and it was just that collaboration with Adidas that really etched him over the top, is what they say.
Yeah. So what I heard, again, estimates of net worth are, hey, he went from over $1 billion, you know, 1.5 to like 400 million. It's a huge. I mean, that is 100%. I mean, that's a huge balance sheet to disappear, right, in a matter of a week or two.
But that's to your point. That's just That to your point. That just shows the importance of influencers, and you know, just like there's so many rules that they have to go around, other than just saying. There's FTC rules on posts, and there's this and that. You know, there's a lot more lawsuits that are out there because of influencers, either unknowingly doing something or, you know, just bringing attention to a brand. So you're right, like the importance of influencers and collaborations with musicians and artists and creatives are huge today. So brands need to really just think a lot before they do any and everything, in my opinion.
And it's interesting because in many respects, I think brands like Gap and Balenciaga and probably even Adidas, one of the reasons why they were so interested in being associated with him to begin with is because he likes to be in front of the camera. He's the guy that he's going to be on stage. He's going to be at some event. He's going to be rocking their shoes, rocking their wear. They love that, right? That's branding. The sad part about it is you get everything that comes with Kanye, for better or for worse. And I think it's really wild because from what I counted, it was about 2 weeks before Adidas took a position after the latest set of tweets that got him in trouble, right? The anti-Semitic comments about going, DEF CON and just obnoxious, horrible things that he said. It took about 2 weeks. And people are asking, well, why did it take 2 weeks? How is it that, do you have any thoughts on that, on the time, the delta between, his statements and when they actually cut him loose from their brand?
Yeah, I think you're right. That was important for a lot of people. Adidas, I think they said officially it's pending review, or they're going to review his actions. And then, like you said, the distance between when they actually cut ties with him was a long time, and it lost a lot of people. And during that time, it brought up a lot of stuff that Adidas didn't want to be brought up, some shadows in their past. And I think that a lot of people, even people that I know, are like, whoa, I had no clue of that. So I think it's going to hurt their brand just from a weighting aspect, but also from just an overall eyes kind of opening aspect as well. But you're right, like that was definitely an important issue there. And I think it goes down to what we were talking about, the financial burden of Yeezy on Adidas and just in general is something to consider, like despite the fact that he says crazy stuff, they still had to think about it. That's how scary it is.
It's crazy because the Adidas history, and I had a chance to do some independent research on this too, but apparently two of the founders were associated at one point with the Nazi party, right? For those who don't know, Adidas is a German company. They started in Germany as a German brand. And so they have this dark history. And I think in many respects, they're like, there's no way we can be associated with this. And it had to go up the chain. And it's a balance sheet decision. It's not as easy as just saying we're going to distance ourselves. They've invested quite a bit into this partnership. And so it certainly wasn't an easy decision. Even if they decided we don't want to be near this guy, they needed a plan. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes people in the boardroom to make a decision. Ultimately, I think they did the right thing for sure, but it wasn't this overnight reaction that we're used to seeing on social media, right? So we had a few comments, took way too long. Yeah, I mean, I agree. 2 weeks definitely is not the kind of reaction time we want from something like this. Same thing with Mercedes-Benz. One's called Nazi. Yeah, I mean, their history is very dark. So here's the question. Yee owns the designs, right? How does it work with Adidas Boost inside of it? This is a really, really good question. You have any thoughts on that, Zach?
Yeah, so I think from my understanding, the Boost itself, obviously the word Boost is a trademark. That's owned by Adidas most likely. But the Boost technology and that kind of stuff, I don't know if Adidas owns that or if they're licensing that from another company, but I know Adidas has that in all their other products. I'm pretty sure they own that. I've seen a bunch of design patents on the actual like design of the Boost and like in the sole and such. But that is the actual technology. So Adidas can really do what they want with it, like they do with like the Adidas NMD or the Ultra Boost. They could use the Boost itself. But you're right, the Boost is in pretty much every Kanye West shoe, the Yeezy 350, all that stuff. So that's the question. Are they just going to scrap the word Yeezy off of the same shoe and start selling it? And I think that was part of the reason why they took so much time in that decision, Raees, just because they had to figure out what they're going to do. They can make a statement is one thing, but like they made a statement and then they also stopped production and, assumingly took products off the shelves and did all that. And that's, that's a huge hit, especially around this time. I'm sure they already had a planned rollout of Yeezys for next week and Christmas time and, into next year. So it's a big decision all over the world for a company like that.
Yeah, it's no doubt. There was a comment by Lawyer Base here. I think they were on crisis management mode, and part of them wanted to see it calm down for monetary reasons, not moral. I 100% agree with this. Like Q4 shoe sales, accessory sales in general, retail sales, this is where you make your coin, right? Exactly. With holiday sales, Black Friday. So they're literally busy stocking one of their most popular selling products. And now they're like, dude, we got to walk from this. We got to walk from this. And that's ultimately they made the right decision, like we said, but it's not something you can flip the switch and just be like, dude, we're taking this loaf of bread, off the shelf of one store in a small town. It doesn't work like that, right?
Exactly.
So this is an interesting thing. And people feel differently about this, but let's say Adidas now takes the same design, right? They own the intellectual property from the design. Like if we zoom out for a second, it's true that Adidas owns the design, right? The intellectual property rights associated with the design of that shoe. That's my understanding, right?
Yeah.
So Adidas can say, Yee, we don't like you, but this was a hot selling shoe. We're going to still offer it to our customers. We're getting a lot of demand. They could do that, right? They could scratch his name off and sell it under whatever brand or label they want.
Yeah, I'd say they could do that. You know, we haven't seen the contract yet, so I don't want to, you know, as a lawyer, I don't want to say, yeah, because there could always be something in the contract that says, if we break up with you, you get the IP. Like Kanye's been talking about this kind of stuff for years now. You know how designers need to own the full music recordings, you know, all that kind of stuff, but also their creative designs and all that stuff. So like maybe he has some secret clause in there like that. The chances are no, you know, getting back to reality, the chances are that no, and Adidas owns all that kind of designs. But then it comes to a question that we're just, you know, talking about, like they could legally do that, but are they going to do that? You know, it looks really bad to be associated with Kanye West now, but also if they just terminate the guy and quote unquote take his designs, you know, like that I don't think that's going to happen. You know, I think anything associated with Kanye, Adidas is probably going to stop. And sort of like what he was talking about before he exited, there's a couple of shoes that are like, you know, inspired, quote unquote, inspired by Kanye that Adidas sort of has out right now. With Addy Foam Q, and there's another sandal that's looks like a Lego. It's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, but like anyway, those Kanye was talking about those shoes, and at the same time, Adidas could push those without people complaining. So like, I think they're just going to do that. You know, continue to sell old, different shoes, maybe make some new shoes themselves, and just forget about all this, even with the IP and, you know, design rights. So, but we'll see.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we haven't seen the contract, so we're speculating a little bit. But you're exactly right. It just depends on what the contract says. You know, most contracts. Yeah, no worries. Most contracts with brands like this and individuals, they have these provisions relating to moral rights, you know, and attribution rights. And for those of you who are listening who are not, you know, from the IP world, yeah, that's beautiful, man. Look at that.
Yeah, it's the new Adidas one that Kanye was talking about. But I mean, it looks sort of like this Yeezy. It also looks like a foam runner, you know. So like,
yeah,
I think Adidas could get away with pushing this without, you know, being too attached to Ye.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree. What I was saying was, until the contract comes out and we have the ability to analyze the provisions, we don't know. But what I was saying, generally speaking, brands, and I've seen these contracts and have negotiated them on behalf of my clients, and that is there's typically a provision that says, there's typically two provisions that protect brands from people like Ye or who have outbursts like Ye, and that is two things. One, moral rights. Like, we don't want our brand associated with certain kinds of things. And right of attribution, or we don't want our brand to be seen in this type of environment. And they're very, very particular about that, because that's the whole point of having a visible brand, is you want the power to be associated with what you want to be associated with as a brand. Right. So that makes it a little bit more difficult if you're someone like Ye, where you're all over controversy and you expect to retain the rights to your endorsement deal. You're putting it in jeopardy by doing things like this.
Exactly.
Query whether he cares or not, but
yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I think this is a great point. Like, you know, being the same as you, having negotiated a bunch of these, there's no way. I think it's important that we could talk about. There's no way if someone puts a morals clause in a contract, it's very hard that you're going to cross it out completely, unless is like, I've seen some that are like very specific about, like, you know, they talk about not just charges, criminal charges, but like conviction, you know, some crazy stuff. But like, it's very rare that you delete a whole morals clause, you know, in a contract, because the other side could just say, come on now, like, what are you, like, you don't agree to be moral and like not talk trash about us, you know? So like, it has to be in there, you know? I think it has to be in that contract.
Somebody made a comment here that, let me just read it. This is interesting. Ye said Adidas breached this contract. That is when he started to go nuclear, no pun intended. Let's not twist the narrative. Yeah, I don't know if Adidas breached the contract first. Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't think they did. I don't know what the basis of the breach is, but
well, I mean, just like, I think in general, a good lawyer could argue any side, you know. So like, you know, any lawyer could argue any side. So Kanye is definitely going to have his claim to say that he breached. You know, maybe it's that he breached because they created this shoe without his permission or without. I mean, that could be an argument that could be made. There could be others. So yeah, I agree with that. Maybe in Kanye's mind, he assumed that they breached. And then he just started breaching himself, or not really caring about the effects of it or something. So that's definitely something that could have happened. It doesn't, you know, erase everything that happened and such. And it's just, maybe Kanye did have a bigger picture, and that could have been part of it, to get out of the contract that way.
Yeah, it's fascinating because even if I'm Ye, and my thought process is, look, I want to get out of this contract one way or another. And let's say the other party's, Adidas is breaching the contract. I want to get out. What's the fastest way to get out? Let's get them to dissociate from me, right? Well, the next step in your thought process is you need to be pretty dang confident that you're going to have a huge following without Adidas, and that you're going to be able to command the same sort of brand premium and pricing, right? And can you do that now if you're Ye? I mean, I know there's still people that love him and will always be huge fans of his music and his designs, but I don't know. Is he still in that position?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think if he were to go on his own right now and make his own shoe or make something, yeah, I think people would buy it in a heartbeat. It would probably do the same thing, sell out. As crazy as it sounds, it probably still would. It's just these brands and these bigger companies can't associate themselves with them now, at least in my opinion. It definitely took a hit. I'm not saying it has Kanye or Ye has the power that he did before and his brand, but I think so. I think he's just such a power in the design industry and all that his designs and everything would sell out real quick.
When you zoom out, it reminds us of, look, we're human beings. We'll say things, and Ye's a special kind of person. But my point is, when you rely on humans to sell products by being out in the public's eye, you're going to get hit with controversy. The bigger the public figure, the more they're in the mix with the stuff, the more likely that there's going to be some sort of controversy that puts the brand in an awkward position, right? And that's why there are these outs in contracts for the brand to pull back, to tie up the individual and say, you can't do this, you can't do that, because for this exact reason. But social media has made it so much easier to see the underbelly of individuals and their personal beliefs and politics and religion, right? I mean, it's a very hard place to do business if you're a public figure, because you're always thinking, I've got this logo on me all the time, basically. So we're just seeing the realities of it now. Something else that struck me as sort of interesting was I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, which was Ye buying the Parler app, right? The extreme right, as they call it, ultra right platform. What do you make of that? And from a branding perspective, like the fact that he bought that and he wants to be affiliated with that, and he's sort of pressing the reset button on all of his followers because he's lost his Instagram, right? So, and his Twitter. What do you think about moving to that platform and launching a new brand of shoes?
I mean,
like smart branding decision, or?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, whatever platform Kanye is on, it's gonna get out there. Whether he's using Parler as a jumping point to talk in general or just release his shoe brand, it's gonna get out there because he's Ye. So I think it's gonna happen. I think the Parler thing, I have no clue, but I think the Parler thing was just a decision because everyone else was censoring him, so to speak. So I think he just wanted the ability to freely do and say what he wanted, and he saw Elon do it with Twitter in a way. So now I think that he's gonna purchase that and sort of have more of a voice on there. Of his own voice and be in control there. Because tying this back to designs and sneakers stuff, as we saw when he was breaking away from Adidas, he wanted more control of his designs. And, in contracts with companies and brands, it's tough to get that. It's usually going to be a partnership. And, some people have the decision here, some people have the decision there. So by buying Parler and actually owning the company, he could, make his own decisions or have more control in his own way.
Didn't Ye say like a couple of weeks ago, like, somebody sell me their shoe company? Like I want to buy a shoe company. Didn't he say that?
Yeah, manufacturer. Yeah, I think it sounded like it sounded like he was realizing that it's hard to have, what Adidas has and what the Nikes have, and the backbones in the industry, being able to mass produce such quantity at such scale. And I think that was, what his frustration was. He wanted to leave those places and he wanted to do it himself, but he was just looking to see who could do that. And it's tough to find. So who knows? Maybe he'll go that route. Maybe he'll find someone. It could happen.
Somebody asked, has he even closed on Parler? I don't think he's closed, and we won't know exactly because it's a private company as far as I know. And but there's a lot of talk. Allegedly, he signed an LOI. If not, question whether he can even have the cash flow. Yeah, does he have the money to buy this kind of stuff? I mean,
Very true, Jeffrey. Very true. That is true.
yeah, yeah. Um, there was another comment about, well, Yee has sold more sneakers than anyone else for Adidas. Um, you know the sneaker world better than I. What do you think of that? I mean, is that?
Yeah, it's a no doubt. The Yeezy 350 and just that shoe in general changed everything. I mean, everyone knows the V2 has a million colorways of it now. So just thinking that that's going to end is sort of, comical but sad at the same time, just because it's been, it's been so cool and so good for everyone, from Adidas and a Ye perspective. And I mean, they could do that forever, just like Jordan 1 right now just changes a couple colorways and does a couple GRs and a couple releases and stuff. Essentially, Adidas could have done that with the 350 for whatever, for forever in time, if they had this relationship still. So I think it's sad, but and I don't know. It'll be tough to see if it comes back out. I really don't think it will, especially in the short Adidas. But we'll see. Anything's possible.
What do you think? Let's say you are, the CEO of Adidas, right? And this is on your table right now, and he comes back to you. He has a private meeting, and he says, "Listen, I screwed up. I shouldn't have said that. Okay, I was mad. There was a lot of things going on. I recant, and I wanna jump back in. This was a beautiful partnership. Let's start designing some shoes."
I don't know. I think the ship has sailed, right? What do you think about it? I think it's too late, in my opinion.
Here's the thing, and this is what, if it were just you making a decision, that's different. You're a public company. Like, you have responsibilities to shareholders, and you can get tanked, man. I mean, you're in the public's eye. It's not just about, like, selling a product is not just about having a good product. It's about, what are you associated, as we've seen, it's what are you associated with? Do we like what you're associated with? What do you what do you value? What are your values as a company? It's no longer about, I like the product, and so that's it. We made a good product. It's a tough one.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it took Adidas that long time. I think, they had a board and they had everyone to go through and all that. And when it comes down to it, like you said, I think it was 10% of Adidas's overall, annual revenue was from the Yeezy brand. 10%.
That's huge. That's huge.
From a multi-billion-dollar company, that's a lot. So it's a rough decision, just like you said. But I don't know, coming back like that, I don't think they could come back right now, just in my opinion. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
you know what? One thing,
he was just at Skechers. Did you hear that? He was just knocking on Skechers' door.
Yeah, I heard that. Skechers is a huge. If you were Skechers, would you take on Yee? Would you say, come in and design some shoes with us?
That could cause some waves, I don't think I would, just because of everything he said and, like, the company and all that. And I think they did the right thing, but, like, that's a great example of just, someone will eventually take the risk. I think at some point it's still Kanye, and he's still, got that ability to do what he does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks as we lead into the holidays, and I don't know. The guy's full of surprises, man. That's what he's good at marketing. He's not exactly not controversial. He's probably the most controversial public figure that I can think of, as a musician and an artist. But I think we're going to continue to see, like, backlash and other dominoes falling as a result of this. But yeah, it's a tough one to come back with.
Right. No, I can see that. He's just such a polarizing character, and I think that, he always wants to be the limelight. So this definitely isn't the last we've seen of him, for this year, I think.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you make of, the argument that, listen, he's a great shoe designer, and people are just overdoing the amount of controversy. Like, everybody says stupid things, and just because he's Kanye, they're doubling down. I've heard this, on social media, especially Twitter commentators, and we've obviously seen a lot of gross things come out of it, right? Like, some of these, like, people that are pro-Nazi coming out, and more anti-Semitism coming out. It's kind of stimulated a very dark side of things. So I think I know what your answer is, but what would you say to it's really not that big of a deal what he said?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. He has such a platform that, whatever he says is going to echo and people are going to listen to it, just like what happened here, where there are people on the freeway in LA and other people all over still, doing racist, anti-Semitic and all those kind of actions. So I think that, some of the stuff that he was saying was good in general. And it was probably true, but, in general, you can't say all this stuff. And it was, it has the power to spread.
Yeah, it's magnetized the ugliness, right? I mean, it's drawing it out. And that's sad. It's unfortunate. There was a video of this dude. I just saw this I think it was Instagram yesterday, or maybe it was TikTok. This dude walked into a bar in Soho, New York. Did you see that with the Nazi full military costume on with the swastika on his?
Wow,
Yeah.
I missed that. It's here in New York. Wow.
Yeah, I think it was in New York in Soho. I think, yeah, it was. So like, this is the kind of stuff that people feel like, oh, well, if such a big celebrity is coming out and feels no fear in doing this, then I should be okay voicing that, belief too, or taking a side. It's horrible. It's really, it's terrible.
Exactly. He's made the face, whether he wanted to or not. He is the face now of that, and it doesn't have a good effect. So it was not a good move by him on my part. Even though some of the messages that he wanted to get out might not have been that way, or might not have been properly told. He could have done it better.
Yeah. Well, what else do we need to know about this saga? There might be legal disputes that come out of this, right? I mean, Kanye is a pretty litigious guy, I think. I don't know that he's just going to let this one fly. I think he's going to try to figure out a way to squeeze something out of this.
Yeah, I wondered that myself, and that's why I'd love to get your take on that, because there's always two sides to this, and it looks like Adidas is terminating, and who knows how the wind down will go. Just like Gap, they had a wind down provision, and I think we even saw a bunch of sales of Yeezy Gap products, discounted products that probably they probably weren't allowed to discount them in the agreement. But that's like a contractual standpoint. Do you see any litigation coming out of this from Kanye? I mean, based on the morals kind of stuff, do you think he'd even want to fight that, or he just wants to get out?
I have a feeling even for the PR angle, the dude's probably going to fight it, unless, obviously he's not going to be pro per. He's going to hire legal counsel, but the trick is going to be, one, legal counsel looking at this and saying, dude, like you're not going to get the ear of a judge or a jury on this, meaning you're not going to have a convincing argument, because here's the clause. Like what you and I can anticipate in something we haven't seen is most likely a clause that allows the brand substantial leeway on being associated with things, right? And being associated or not, and pulling the rug out from a deal because of something you said. And I'm sure that provision's in there. I'm sure it is. So
exactly. Has to have non-disparagement, morals, all that. I'm just wondering about the IP kind of thing. I can see, to your point, like he loves PR, so maybe like he makes us think that he owns some of these rights and stuff, despite what the design patent says. Like maybe there's something in the contract, or maybe he just makes a claim in general about that, and it would cause I could see that it would go towards his message, but it would also cause a lot of PR issues.
Yeah, like, hey, you're misappropriating a design element, and I'm owed a reasonable royalty as a result. Give me 1% instead of the 7 to 10 or whatever. And maybe there is an argument on that again, because it's really interesting with intellectual property and design arguments. If you're not tight, if legal doesn't do their job properly, or if you don't know all the facts and you miss something, it leaves some room for these kind of arguments. And that's how a lot of this stuff happens. You see it a lot in co-founder disputes in tech companies and startups. It could very well happen here. We don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's what I was thinking. I mean, it's a great firm who drafted the contract and did all that, so I'm sure it's a solid contract. But at the same time, there's always room to wiggle and room to make an argument. So it'll be interesting to see if he does that. I could totally see something like that happening in the next 2 months.
Great. Well, it's interesting stuff, man. What else should people know about this dispute and what's ahead?
I guess we talked about all the main points. I always get asked about the design ownership and such. And I guess the only thing that I could think of, just that's sort of relevant, it's an interesting lawyer point that we could talk about as well, is the Yeezy slide. If you look at the what's it called, his portfolio, Adidas listed on the design patent owns most of all of the designs. The only one that I saw that's listed in Kanye's name looks for the Yeezy slide. He also has a high-heeled shoe that no one's that I don't think he's released yet. It might have been some other time. But the Yeezy Slide is like the main one. It's one of the top sellers of Adidas. So, I mean, if his name is listed on that design patent, there's no other thing in the contract. You know, people say maybe he's going to take that with him, but I don't really see that going. I don't see that happening as well. Even though his name is listed on the as the owner on the IP, I think that just from trademark perspective, because this is associated with you know, the Yeezy brand, Adidas Yeezy Slide, that there's no way that Kanye or even Adidas could just sell it. You know, in my opinion, just because they're so tightly connected. So that's why I think from a design perspective, I think almost all these designs are going to be scratched for a little bit. You know.
It's interesting because at the very least, it's super controversial. So from like a social currency standpoint, nobody's going to want their fingerprints on it, right?
Yeah.
From a business standpoint and IP standpoint, it's possible. Again, we don't know, we haven't seen the contract, but it's possible, like for the sliders, that although he's the inventor, he could have been paid some money to assign or given exclusivity on production to Adidas or somebody else. So he may not be able to monetize that.
Exactly. That's why I wonder, just looking, taking a step back and looking at all the IP, that's really the only ones that he has his name on. So I wonder, like you said, without seeing the contract, I wonder how that fits into this piece and if he'll be able to walk away with that. It'll be tough to actually do that. So I agree with you. That to me is really the interesting piece here. Like if he could walk away with anything, you know, otherwise it's just starting from the scratch again.
And the other thing people need to consider too is like if Yee's going to make a comeback in the shoe world, how is he going to sell them? Is he going to do direct to consumer? Because I don't know that retail outlets are going to want to carry his shoe, right? I suppose he could do direct to consumer, or you know, sell up through some online platform. But it's just interesting. Like he's got a lot to catch up. You know, he's got a significant chasm to cross in terms of making his image whole again. And I don't see it happening anytime soon. I think he's going to have to go and leverage other partnerships. I mean, even look what's happening with music and production. Like CCA's not interested in him.
Yeah, that player too. I forgot about that statement by the STEM player people. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's why I think just one thing, just for a plug for creatives and like small brands, and this sort of ties into it. Like the age we live in is awesome right now. The ability for you to create a shoe or create a T-shirt and get it out to the mass, you know, the world, literally, is amazing. You know, you get an Instagram account and sell stuff there, but an online store is working for everybody. And it's the way that independent brands and creatives are getting their name out there. And, you know, maybe this is a situation for Kanye to realize what happened, you know, get knocked back to the ground and start back up again. And, you know, independent brands could do it. So maybe he will go DTC, you know, that way. And I'm sure he'll still sell out. And I think it'll be like sort of just an inspiring story if he's able to, you know, get back up and do what he's doing again. So I like it. We'll see what happens.
You know, let's underscore that for everybody who's going to watch this either live and later is the micro creator world. You never know what's going to hit. And so if you're a creator, your job is just to create and put it out there. Don't be the arbiter of what's good or bad. I mean, I know a lot of people who saw Yee's initial designs and were like, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, who would take that and, right? I mean, you still hear it. People look at the shoe like, what the hell is that thing? I mean, but creators do what creators do, and that's it. You just can keep going. And you never know who's going to catch or grab or how it's going to magnetize or hit people. And that's what it's all about. That's what the entrepreneurial journey is about.
Exactly. And we live in a great time for all that. So I'm all for it. I love it. Love being a part of it.
Good, man. Well, this was really good to chat with you on this topic. We got to do this again very soon. And depending on what happens with Yee next, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about.
Yeah, exactly, man. Love speaking with you. Thanks for having me. It was great. So we'll have to do this again for something soon.
Excellent. Zach, take care, man.
Thanks. You too, Raees. Have a good weekend.
See ya. Thanks.
Take care.